My name is Olivia Grant. I'm 31 years old, and 4 months ago, my boyfriend's parents decided I wasn't good enough for their son over dry steak and overpriced wine. They didn't say it like an insult. They said it like a verdict. I was in the middle of a root canal when my phone lit up on the tray beside me. The text preview flashed between the suction tube and the instruments. My parents want to meet for dinner tonight. Important. Even through the blue of my gloves and the glare of the overhead lamp, that one word made my stomach tighten. Important. After 3 years with Evan, I knew what that meant. Nothing good ever followed my parents' want in that family. I finished with the patient, smiled, gave the usual post-op instructions. Soft foods, no chewing on that side. Call us if there's any pain. My voice was steady, my hands were steady. My heart wasn't. By the time I locked up the practice, the sky was turning mauve, that in-between color before the streetlights come on. I sat in my car for a full minute staring at the text. I typed, "Sure, what time?" "At Delmonico's." Of course. White tablecloths, fussy waiters, meat described like fine art. A place where the water costs more than my favorite takeout. I went home, changed out of my scrubs, put on the black dress Evan once called quietly dangerous, and a blazer that made me feel like the boss I kept pretending I wasn't. I added mascara, a swipe of lipstick, and the faintest hint of perfume. If I was going to be judged, I might as well look like I deserved the trial. When I walked into the restaurant at 7 sharp, they were already seated. Evan's dad, Richard, in a navy suit, despite it being Saturday night, tie perfectly knotted. His mom, Margaret, in pearls, and a cream blouse that probably cost more than my monthly supplies order. Evan sat between them, looking like he'd swallowed a live battery. "Olivia," Margaret said, rising to air-kiss my cheek. Her perfume was sharp and floral. "You look lovely, dear." "Dear," I resisted the urge to flinch. "Hey," Evan said, standing. His eyes didn't quite meet mine. I slid into the empty chair, the leather cool against the back of my legs. The waiter appeared, rattled off specials like poetry. We ordered, made small talk, weather, traffic, the usual filler people use when they're building a conversational gallows. Then Richard cleared his throat. "So," he said, swirling his wine, "we wanted to discuss your future." He didn't say your future like it included me. My fork paused above my salad. "Our future?" I asked. He smiled, tight and practiced. "Evan's future, and, by extension, yours. Potentially." There it was, potentially, the escape hatch. 3 years of holidays, birthdays, family trips, reduced to a clause. Margaret leaned in, folding her hands delicately on the table. "Olivia, we've been thinking about this for a while. You're a nice young woman. We want you to know that." Nice. The kiss of death. "But," Richard continued, "we have some concerns about long-term compatibility." I looked at Evan. He stared at his plate like the answers were hiding in the mashed potatoes. "What kind of concerns?" I asked. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Margaret's smile didn't waver. "It's nothing personal, sweetheart. We just want what's best for Evan. He's worked so hard, he's used to a certain lifestyle. Travel, opportunities, security." Security. Translation. Money. "I'm a dentist," I said. "I run a practice. That's about as secure as it gets in this economy." Richard chuckled, a low, condescending sound. "Of course. Dentistry is respectable. Very respectable. But you run a small practice, correct? One location." "One location," I confirmed. 3 chairs. 4, actually, if you count the one we use for consults. "So you see maybe, 20 patients a day?" he asked, as if he were asking about my hobbies. I felt heat creep up my neck. "On a full day, yes. Sometimes more." He nodded, as if he'd just proven a point to himself. "You're comfortable where you are. You're not really building anything significant." The words landed with surgical precision. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Arguing with him in that moment felt like a losing game. He'd already decided the score. "I own a business," I said instead. "A small business, yes, but a business." Margaret jumped in. "A small business," she repeated, like she was correcting a child. "There's a difference between running a small office and building an empire. Evan has always been destined for more." Always been destined for more. As if being with me was less. My eyes moved to Evan again. "What do you think?" I asked him quietly. He finally looked up. His jaw clenched, then relaxed, like he was rehearsing the words in his head before saying them out loud. "I think," he exhaled, "I think they have a point, Liv." Liv. The nickname that used to make me feel special now felt like a warning label. "You're comfortable," he continued. "You're good at what you do. But you don't really push for more. You've said so yourself. You like things steady. And that's a problem? I asked. For me, yeah, he said, not unkindly. I've been thinking about my future, about what I want. I need someone who's more ambitious, someone with bigger goals. The waiter arrived with appetizers right then, like some cosmic joke. He set the plates down, oblivious to the way the table had just shifted on its axis. No one touched the food. We think, Richard said, leaning back, fingers steepled, it's best if you two part ways now, before things get more serious. Better for everyone involved. He said it like he was advising a client on a bad investment. I looked at Evan. 3 years. Vacations. Moving days. Late night talks. All of it, apparently, worth less than an expansion plan and a second home in the Hamptons. Okay, I said. Margaret blinked. Okay? I nodded. Yeah. You've all made yourselves very clear. I'm not ambitious enough for your son. Not successful enough for your standards. Message received. Evan frowned. Liv, Olivia, wait. We were going to talk about it, not just... Discuss what? I asked. You brought your parents to break up with me. Pretty clear where you stand. I thought we'd have a conversation, he said weakly. There's nothing to discuss, I said. You think you can do better. I hope you find it. I stood up. The chair scraped softly against the carpet. Richard actually looked surprised that I wasn't fighting harder. Margaret's mouth opened and closed, fish-like. No hard feelings? Richard asked, almost hopeful. We just want what's best. I smiled, and it wasn't nice. There are definitely hard feelings, I said. Just not the ones you think. I turned to Evan. Thank you, I added. For what? He asked, confused. For being honest enough to do this now instead of 5 years from now, I said. You did me a favor. I walked out of the restaurant, past the host stand, past the bar, past a couple arguing in hushed whispers. The air outside hit me like a wave, humid, city thick, smelling of car exhaust and something fried from the food truck on the corner. I got in my car and sat there, hands on the steering wheel, heart pounding. For 10 full minutes, I just breathed. Then the numbness burned off, and something else took its place. Anger, not at them. At myself. At the way I'd let myself coast. At how many times I'd said one day about expanding the practice, adding services, hiring more staff. At how comfortable I'd gotten with being comfortable. Richard hadn't been entirely wrong. That was the worst part. I picked up my phone and called my business partner, Mike. He answered on the second ring. Hey, Olivia, everything okay? Not really, I said. But it will be. We need to talk about expanding. Not next year. Now. He was quiet for a second. Now? Now, I repeated. New services, longer hours. We start scouting a second location. I'm done coasting. A slow whistle came through the speaker. Okay, he said. If you're serious, I'm in. I've never been more serious, I said. As I hung up, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. Mascara slightly smudged, lipstick faded, eyes bright with something fierce. They thought I wasn't enough. Fine. I was about to become someone who didn't need their approval at all. 4 months after that dinner, my life didn't look recognizable. The first thing that changed was my schedule. We brought on 2 more dentists, one full-time, one part-time. I spent my weekends in certification courses instead of brunches, learning everything I could about cosmetic dentistry, veneers, implants, Invisalign. We extended our weekday hours to 7 p.m. and opened 2 Saturdays a month. Patients noticed. Then they told their friends. Revenue jumped 55% in 3 months. Richard would have called that scaling. I called it finally taking myself seriously. My days became a blur of before and after photos, treatment plans, and late-night emails with contractors about square footage and plumbing lines for a possible second location. I came home exhausted, but it was a different kind of tired. The kind that felt like progress instead of stagnation. Other things shifted too. I traded my faded scrubs and stretched-out cardigans for clothes that actually fit. Joined a better gym, not just the one closest to my apartment. Lost 20 pounds I'd been complaining about for years, but never really addressed. My face looked sharper in the mirror. My eyes looked more awake. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between patients, I'd think about that night at Delmonico's, about the way Evan wouldn't meet my eyes, about Richard's word, comfortable, like it was a diagnosis. They'd been right about the comfort. They'd been wrong about everything else. It was at a dental and facial aesthetics conference in August that I met Daniel. Mike and I had decided we needed to really understand the cosmetic side of things if we were going to lean into it, so we flew out for a 3-day event. The hotel ballroom was full of sleek booths, glossy brochures, and models with blindingly white smiles. I was standing in front of a display about combined dental and plastic surgery makeovers, full facial harmony, according to the banner, when someone beside me said, "That's a terrifying phrase, right?" I turned. Tall, dark hair, sharp features softened by an easy grin, crisp suit, badge clipped to the lapel. Dr. Daniel Reyes, plastic surgeon. Terrifying how? I asked. He nodded toward the photos. Full facial harmony, like your face is a choir, and if one tooth sings off key, it's exiled. I snorted. As a dentist, I'm morally obligated to defend teeth. Ah, he said, glancing at my badge. Dr. Olivia Grant, general dentistry? General and slowly turning cosmetic, I said. You? Plastic surgery, mostly facial work. Lids, noses, the occasional old money face refresh. Old money face refresh? I asked, laughing. You know, he said, same face, just less melted. I liked him immediately. We ended up at the same breakout session, then the same lunch table. He asked smart questions, not just about procedures, but about patient expectations, about ethics. When he found out I ran my own practice, his eyes lit up. That's huge, he said. How long have you been on your own? 5 years, I replied. Feels like I only really started owning it a few months ago. What changed a few months ago, he asked. I took a sip of water. A family decided I wasn't ambitious enough for their son, I said lightly. They were wrong, but they weren't entirely wrong about me being too comfortable. He didn't laugh. He didn't rush in with platitudes. Sometimes the worst people give the most useful wake-up calls, he said. Still doesn't mean they deserve you after you wake up. Something in my chest loosened. We exchanged numbers under the flimsy pretense of referring patients someday. Within a week, we were texting memes about bad cosmetic ads, and then about everything else. Our first date was coffee that turned into a 4-hour walk that turned into dinner. He asked real questions and listened to the answers. When I talked about my second location plans, he didn't ask if I was sure. He asked if I needed an introduction to his contractor. 2 months in, he knew more about my P&L than Evan had in 3 years. We weren't perfect. Nobody is. But I never felt like I was being measured and found lacking. Meanwhile, Evan tried to reappear like a bad pop-up ad. "Hey, hope you're doing okay," came the first text from his familiar number. I stared at it for a long time, then put my phone down and went back to my treatment notes. A month later, "I miss talking to you. Can we get coffee?" I blocked the number. He switched to a different one, then another. Always the same theme. I made a mistake. We should talk. We had something real. Maybe once that would have hooked me. Now it just felt like a man realizing his safety net had a life of its own. I stopped responding at all. Silence became my favorite boundary. The invitation came 5 months after Delmonico's. I was at my desk after hours staring at a spreadsheet comparing lease rates for 3 different potential locations when my phone vibrated with a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Olivia. This is Margaret Blake. Hope you've been well. We're having a small dinner party Saturday and would love for you to come. It's been too long. Feel free to bring a friend." For a second, my brain locked on the wrong part. It's been too long. As if the last time we'd shared a table, they hadn't dismantled my relationship like a financial decision gone wrong. I walked out to the front where Mike was finishing up notes. "You will never guess who just texted me," I said. "Richard," he guessed immediately, saying he wants to invest in the second location. "Close," I said. "Margaret, inviting me to a small dinner party." He made a face. "That sounds like a trap with extra steps." "Apparently I can bring a friend," I added, air quoting. "That's not a friend," he said. "That's bait." On my drive home, I showed the text to Daniel over shared fries at a diner near his place. He read it twice, then again. "Friend, huh?" he said. "They don't want to acknowledge I might be your boyfriend." "Probably still hoping I'm in a stage they can salvage," I said. "Someone must have told them you're a surgeon. Old money radar for status upgrade." "Do you want to go?" he asked. He didn't sound offended or possessive, just curious. "Part of me wants to block the number and never think about them again," I said. "Another part of me wants to walk in there with you on my arm and give them indigestion." He smiled slowly. "I'm not usually pro-indigestion, but in this case—" "Terrible, doctor," I said. "The worst," he agreed. "But seriously, do you want to go?" I thought about Delmonico's, about being pushed out like a bad investment, about Richard's casual dismissal of my work. "I think I do," I said. "Not to rub anything in their faces, I just want to see them again and realize I don't need anything from them." "Then we'll go," Daniel said. "Wear something that makes you feel dangerous." Saturday came. I wore a simple navy dress that fit like it had been tailored just for me, and the same blazer from Delmonico's, because I liked the idea of rewriting that memory. Daniel wore tailored slacks and a button-down, sleeves rolled just enough to suggest he didn't live his life for anyone's approval. We pulled up to the Blakes' house, a pristine two-story with manicured hedges and a front door that probably had its own social media presence. I'd been there a dozen times before. It felt different now. They opened the door together, smiles stretched so wide they looked painful. "Olivia," Margaret exclaimed, "it's so good to see you." "Likewise," I lied politely. "And you must be the famous friend," Richard said, extending a hand to Daniel. "Boyfriend," Daniel corrected pleasantly, shaking his hand. "Daniel Reyes." Of course," Richard said. "We've heard wonderful things." "From who?" I almost asked. We hadn't spoken in 5 months. Apparently, I'd become a topic of conversation again. We walked into the living room. Evan was there, in a crisp button-down, hair styled like he'd had help. His smile flickered when he saw Daniel. "Hey," he said. "Hi," I replied. "This is my boyfriend, Daniel." They shook hands. Evan studied him like he was trying to guess his income from his watch. Drinks were passed around. The room filled with small talk. I watched Margaret circle Daniel like a shark that had smelled premium blood. "So what do you do, Daniel?" she asked, feigning polite curiosity. "I'm a plastic surgeon," he said. "I have a practice on the south side." Both parents perked up like hunting dogs catching a scent. "Plastic surgery," Richard said. "That's a booming field. Very lucrative, I imagine." "I do well," Daniel replied easily. "I've been practicing 6 years. Opened my own office 3 years ago." Margaret practically glowed. "Your own practice? That's impressive. So independent." Evan shifted on the couch. I took a sip of wine to hide my smile. Richard turned to me. "And we heard you've been expanding," he said. "New services, longer hours, a second location in the works?" News travels fast in their circles. Or they'd been doing more research on me than I realized. "Yeah," I said. "We brought on more dentists, added cosmetic services. We're opening a second office in the spring." "Really?" Richard said. "That's ambitious. You know, dentistry is so important. Essential service, very stable." 5 months ago, he'd called it a small office, with a dismissive tilt to his voice. Now it was essential. "We were just saying the other day how undervalued dentists are," Margaret said. "Such skilled professionals." Dinner was worse. They kept weaving in comments about successful couples and professional partnerships, dropping little hints about how powerful it is when two people in the medical field align their futures. "And Evan has been doing wonderfully too," Margaret added, launching into a list of his recent promotions. A big client, some trip to Italy he'd taken, paid for by them, obviously, though that part remained politely unspoken. I felt Daniel's hand brush my knee under the table, a small, grounding touch. It was Richard who finally went for it. "You know, looking back," he said, setting his fork down, "we may have been a bit hasty in our concerns about your relationship with Evan." Daniel's hand stilled. My spine straightened. "I'm sorry, what?" Daniel asked, voice light but edged. Margaret rushed in. "We always thought highly of Olivia," she said. "We just weren't sure about long-term compatibility at the time, but clearly she's been thriving, and Evan has been doing so well too." "So well," Daniel repeated, tone mild. "He's still living in that apartment you pay half the rent for?" Silence. You could hear the chandelier hum. Richard coughed. "We help where we can. Family supports family, right?" Daniel smiled, all teeth. "That's interesting," he said, "because 5 months ago, you didn't seem to think Olivia was family material, not ambitious enough, not impressive enough. But now that she's expanding her practice and dating a surgeon, suddenly she's worth reconsidering." Margaret went pale. "That's exactly it," Daniel said, still calm. "You thought you could do better for your son. You couldn't. Now you want her back in the orbit. Am I wrong?" No one answered. I set my napkin down. "I think we're done here," I said softly. Daniel looked at me. "Ready to go?" "Very," I said. We stood, chairs scraped. Margaret sputtered something about dessert, about misunderstanding. "This was never about dessert," Daniel said. "You didn't invite us here for a friendly dinner. You invited us to see if you could undo a decision you regret without ever apologizing for how you made it." We walked to the door. Behind us, I heard Evan's chair move, heard his footsteps follow. "Olivia," he said quietly, "can I talk to you for a second? Alone?" Daniel glanced at me. "I'll be in the car," he said. "Take your time." He kissed my cheek in front of them, then stepped outside. I turned back to Evan, the house that once felt familiar now feeling like a museum exhibit. "Make it quick," I said. I stepped back into the foyer, the house suddenly too warm, too full of old memories I wanted no part of. Evan closed the door just enough to muffle the sound of his parents moving around the dining room. He looked different up close, tense, pale, like someone who'd rehearsed a speech in his head 100 times and now realized none of it applied anymore. I didn't know they were going to do that, he said immediately. Do what? I asked. Seat me at a table like an audition panel and hope I sing the right notes this time. He winced. The whole dinner thing, inviting you, bringing up the past. They shouldn't have. But they did, I said, voice flat, because they want something, and because you let them. I'm serious, he said. They've been weird ever since they heard about him. Daniel, I said, he has a name. Evan swallowed. Fine, Daniel. Ever since they heard about him, they've been asking questions, looking you up online. My mom even called your office, pretending she needed an appointment. That I already knew, I said. My receptionist told me. Look, he said, I'm not defending them. I swear I'm not. They're out of line. I've told them that. But, I repeated. I've been thinking about us, he said, his voice cracking in a way that would have gutted me once. About everything. I made a mistake, Liv. Don't call me that, I said. It came out sharper than I intended. Only people who still matter get to shorten my name. He looked like he'd been slapped. I let them influence me too much, he went on, desperate now. My whole life, I've relied on them, for advice, for security, for approval. When they said you weren't ambitious enough, I just believed it. I didn't even question it. I see that now. I know you deserved better than that, better than me. His eyes were damp. Evan never cried. He barely emoted. It should have moved something in me. Instead, it felt like watching a stranger fall apart. You're seeing things clearly now because of Daniel, I said. Because he's a surgeon. Because he's successful in ways your parents understand. That's not true, he said instantly. It's completely true, I said. If I was still the same woman from 5 months ago, same practice, same pace, you wouldn't be standing here apologizing. You'd be at that table with your parents, congratulating yourselves on making the right call. Evan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It doesn't change the fact that I miss you, he managed. We had something real. We had something comfortable, I corrected. There's a difference. He took a shaky breath. So that's it? 3 years mean nothing to you? They meant something, I said. They taught me exactly how much I was willing to shrink myself to keep a peace that wasn't worth keeping. They showed me how easy it was for you to put your parents' opinions above my worth. They taught me I deserve more. He stepped closer. Olivia, please, I can fix this. No, I said, stepping back. You can't. You made your choice at Delmonico's. I'm just choosing not to pick it back up. He stared at me for a long moment, jaw trembling. Is this really what you want? Yes, I said simply, and you need to leave me alone. If you show up at my work again, I'll call the police. I'm done being polite about boundaries. He nodded once, slow, defeated, then turned and walked away. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding and stepped outside into the cool evening air. Daniel was leaning against his car, hands in his pockets, looking both patient and ready to burn the Blake household to the ground if I'd asked him to. When he saw me, he straightened. Everything okay? I blew out a shaky exhale. We're leaving. He opened the passenger door for me without another word. On the drive home, neither of us spoke for a while. The quiet felt safe, grounding, real. What did he say? Daniel finally asked, eyes still on the road. That they made a mistake, I said. That he wants me back. Daniel's jaw flexed. Reconsider dating him, you mean? Yeah. He shook his head. Well, that's not happening. No, I said, it's not. We pulled into the drive-thru of a burger place near my apartment. Daniel ordered for both of us like he already knew what I liked, and he wasn't wrong. When he handed me the bag, he said, You know, I've dealt with a lot of eccentric families in my field. But yours? He let out a low whistle. They're amateurs. I laughed, the sound catching me off guard. You're not wrong. We ate fries in the car, windows rolled down, city air drifting in. For the first time since stepping into the Blake home, I felt my lungs fully expand. Then came the next 3 weeks. Unhinged didn't begin to cover it. Evan texted from new numbers. And new ones. And new ones. Always the same theme. Please just talk to me. I made a mistake. Give me another chance. We had something real. Don't throw it away. Blocked. Blocked. Blocked again. Then Margaret started calling my office. 6 times in 2 days. My receptionist, tired of the fake names and increasingly frantic tones, started logging every call. Tell her I'm unavailable, I told her. If she calls again, document it as harassment. The calls stopped, temporarily. Then Richard tried emailing my business partner, Mike, about investment opportunities for our expansion. Mike forwarded me the email with a subject line that said, "You need to read this insanity." The message was transparent, obvious, embarrassing. Richard had written about supporting family and believing in your vision and being a silent partner who understands the market. It was an attempt to buy influence, to create a power tie he could tug whenever he wanted. Mike called me. "This the ex's dad?" "Yep." "What do you want me to do?" "Ignore it," I said. "He's trying to buy leverage. We're not for sale." Mike whistled. "These people are wild." "You have no idea," I said. 3 days later, things escalated. Daniel and I were at a black tie medical fundraiser, one he was helping host. Soft lighting, champagne, a string quartet playing near the stage, doctors in gowns and tuxedos mingling. We were talking to one of Daniel's colleagues when I saw them. The Blakes, all three of them, dressed to the nines, at a medical fundraiser. Daniel followed my gaze, his expression flattening. "You have got to be kidding." They spotted us instantly. Margaret moved first, straight line, predatory smile. "What a lovely surprise," she chimed. "We had no idea you'd be here." "It's a medical community event," Daniel said coolly. "I'm on the planning committee." "Oh, of course," she said. "We just wanted to support healthcare. Such important work." Evan hovered behind her, mortified. Richard's eyes scanned the room like he owned it. My skin prickled. My patience evaporated. "Daniel," I said softly, "if they get within 10 feet of talking about reconciliation, I'm walking out." "You won't need to," he said. "I'll handle it." Richard drifted closer, smiling like a man who'd never been told no in his life. He pulled me a few steps aside while Daniel spoke to someone else. "Listen," he said, dropping the polite mask. "Cards on the table." "Don't you get tired of that line?" I asked. He ignored it. "We screwed up," he said. "Our daughter screwed up. You're exactly the kind of woman we should have embraced from the start. Stable, ambitious, driven." "Funny how I'm all those things now," I said, "but wasn't 5 months ago." He exhaled. "We can admit when we're wrong. Give her another chance." "To do what?" I asked. "Win your approval?" "To be part of our family again." "I'm not interested in a family that only values me when I'm impressive enough." "You're being stubborn," he snapped. "I'm being smart," I said. 6 months ago, I wasn't good enough for your standards. Now I'm expanding my practice and dating a surgeon, and suddenly I'm worthy? You think I don't see what this is?" His jaw twitched. "What is it?" "You're embarrassed," I said calmly. "You pushed away someone good, and now she's thriving with someone more successful than your son, and you can't stand it." His face flushed red. "You arrogant—" "You crashed a medical fundraiser to corner me," I said. "Your wife called my office pretending to be a patient. You sent fake investor emails, and I'm the arrogant one?" I walked away. Daniel found me immediately. "Everything okay?" "We're leaving," I said, before I start losing my license from saying what I actually want to say. He wrapped an arm lightly around my waist. Done. But the Blakes weren't. And what came next was worse. The following Monday, Mike called me into his office. He looked annoyed in a way I'd only seen once, when a vendor tried to overcharge us for chair upholstery, and he threatened to switch suppliers in the middle of a trade show. "We got another call," he said. "From who?" I asked, though something cold in my gut already knew. He held up a sticky note with a number written on it. Same investment firm that emailed last week. But this time, they scheduled a meeting with our landlord. I blinked. "Our landlord?" "For the building we're looking at for the second location." My stomach dropped. "They what?" "They're trying to buy the building," Mike said. "Our landlord thought we should know because the offer came out of nowhere." I sat down hard. "That's insane." "Olivia," Mike said slowly, "what kind of people do this?" "My ex's family," I said. "Old money types who don't know what to do when someone tells them no." He rubbed his forehead. "So what do we do?" "I'll handle it," I said, even though my pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. He raised a brow. "Are you sure?" "No," I admitted, "but I'm done letting them push my life around." When I got back to my office, I shut the door, locked it, and dialed Richard's number. He answered on the second ring. "Olivia," he said, sounding almost cheerful. "Good to hear from you." "Cut the act," I said. "Why are you trying to buy the building we're negotiating for?" He sighed dramatically, like I was being unreasonable. "Not trying to block you. We thought it might be beneficial. We could help finance the build-out. Silent investors." "Silent investors don't ambush people's business plans," I said. "You're trying to force a financial tie so you can insert yourself into my life." "That's absurd," he snapped. "You're trying to buy leverage," I corrected, "and you think if I need something from you, you'll get to be involved." with my practice, with my life, maybe even with who I date. Silence. You need to stop, I said. Call off the building purchase. Stay away from my business. Stay away from me. If you keep this up, it's harassment. You're overreacting. I hung up, then immediately called my lawyer friend Aaron. After I explained everything, he exhaled so loudly I could practically feel it through the phone. Jesus Christ, he said. Okay, you definitely have grounds for a cease and desist. If they keep interfering with your business, even grounds for civil action. Can we send something now? I asked. We can, he said, but let me draft it properly. Document everything until then. I have been, I said. Trust me. 2 days later, they escalated again. This time it was Evan. He showed up at my office. Not a text, not a call, not an email. He physically walked into my lobby at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. My receptionist, Kayla, intercepted him immediately. Ma'am, you need an appointment, she said, blocking his way. She called everyone ma'am by default. Evan didn't even process it. I need to speak with her, he insisted. It's urgent. I'm sorry, Kayla said. She's with a patient. He pushed past her. That was when I stepped out of the break room, holding a water bottle, and froze. Evan, I said, what are you doing here? He looked frantic, unshaven, eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept. I need to talk to you, he said, voice cracking. Please. This is harassment, I said, keeping my tone even. You need to leave. No, he said. You don't understand. My parents... He ran a shaky hand through his hair. They've gone crazy. The building thing, the calls, showing up at your events. I told them to stop. I swear, Olivia, I told them. And yet they didn't stop, I said. Weird. I'm trying, he pleaded. I'm trying to fix this. You're trying to fix something that isn't broken, I said. We're done, Evan. Can you just hear me out? I've heard enough, I said. You made your choice. I moved on. Accept it. He took a step closer. But we were good together. We were comfortable, I said. That's different. His face fell. So that's it? You're throwing everything away? You threw it away at Delmonico's, I said. I'm just not fishing it out of the trash. Olivia. Leave, I said, or I'm calling the police. The words hung in the air. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. Then he nodded, trembling. Okay, he whispered. Okay. He walked out. Kayla peeked around the corner. Should I call someone? No, I said. It's fine. But it wasn't, not even close. Because Margaret Blake's next move wasn't toward me. It was toward Daniel. That night, as I was closing up the office, my phone buzzed. Daniel, your ex's mom just called my office. My blood went cold. Me, what? Daniel. She asked to speak to me about a personal matter regarding a mutual friend. My eyebrows shot up. Me, what did she say? He called me immediately. She said she wanted to have a heart-to-heart, he explained, about you and her daughter and destiny or some crap. She told me I should step aside because you and Evan were soulmates. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Oh my God. That I was just a rebound, he continued, and that you were using me to make her daughter jealous, and that it wasn't fair for me to string you along. I laughed, loudly, hysterically. Stringing me along, seriously? Oh yeah, he said. She went full soap opera. And what did you tell her? I asked. I told her, he said calmly, that if she ever contacted my workplace again, I'd file a harassment report with the medical board and consider legal action. My mouth dropped open. You did not. I absolutely did, he said, and then I hung up. I'm not playing with these people. I'm so sorry, I murmured. Don't be, he said. Your ex's family thinks they're dealing with amateurs. I do reconstructions for a living. Cleaning up disasters is my specialty. I was still laughing when we hung up. But then everything stopped being funny. My lawyer overnighted formal cease and desist letters. 3 of them. To Evan, to Margaret, to Richard. Clear, sharp language outlining harassment, workplace interference, defamation risks, and legal consequences. It should have ended there, but of course it didn't. Richard Blake tried one last power move. He started a whisper campaign among his social circle, among business associates, among country club regulars, that I was difficult, unprofessional, unethical. The irony was almost poetic. I found out when one of my long-term patients came in for a cleaning and said, sheepishly, I overheard something about you at an event last week. I wanted to make sure everything's okay. It was laughable. It was infuriating. It was predictable. I called my lawyer immediately. Can we do anything? Defamation is tricky, he said, unless you've lost business or can prove damages. Are you losing patients? No, I said. Then document everything, he replied. If it crosses the line, we'll act. But here's where the universe intervened. Because karma doesn't need permission. Daniel's colleague, a dermatologist, happened to be married to a man who worked in finance. Same industry as Richard. They ran in the same circles. At a dinner party, the husband casually mentioned the Whisper campaign. Daniel's colleague raised a brow and said, "Why is he trying to tank some dentist?" Someone else answered, "Because the dentist dumped his daughter and upgraded, and now the dad's big mad about it." The story spread like wildfire. Suddenly, Richard wasn't the respected businessman. He was the bitter father trying to sabotage the woman who got away. Meanwhile, Evan made his own final move. A vague Instagram post. A soft filter photo of us from a beach trip 2 years ago. Caption: "Sometimes you don't realize what matters until it's gone." The comments rolled in. Heart emojis. Sympathy messages. Until one of my friends commented, "Weird post considering you dumped her because your parents said she wasn't successful enough. She's doing great now." Then my friend's girlfriend added, "Yeah, she's with a surgeon now. They look really happy. Maybe focus on moving forward instead of backward?" Evan deleted the post within an hour, but the damage was done. His friends weren't whispering about his heartbreak anymore. They were questioning his judgment. 2 weeks after the cease and desist letters, everything stopped. No calls, no texts, no surprise appearances, no building interference. Silence. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Richard and Margaret sat Evan down and told him to stop embarrassing the family. That phrase told me everything I needed to know. Evan started therapy. He's dating someone new now, a lawyer his parents introduced him to. They're apparently very suitable. Good for them. Good for him. As for me, Daniel proposed 3 weeks later. It was quiet, just us. No audience, no performance, no one to impress. He didn't even finish asking before I said yes. Our second location opens next month. I hired 2 more staff members. The practice is thriving. And sometimes late at night, when I'm folding laundry or brushing my teeth, I remember Margaret's words, "Not ambitious enough," and wonder how many times I let other people define my potential. Never again. The Blakes were right about one thing. I had been comfortable, but their rejection didn't break me. It woke me up, made me level up, aim higher, choose better, become someone I'm proud of. And the sweetest part? The life I built after them has nothing to do with them. Daniel once joked that we should send the Blakes a thank you card. For what? I asked. For being exactly wrong enough to motivate you. Maybe he's right. But no, they don't deserve even that much acknowledgement. They made their choice, and I'm living the freedom that came from it.